JP Morosi and Jayson Stark are in Cooperstown this morning, and they lead our coverage. Guys, what are you most looking forward to this coming weekend?
Robert, good morning. A very emotional weekend. Two great gentlemen in Scott Rowland and Fred McGriff entering the Hall of Fame. They're great ball players, Jason, but great humanitarians as well. And I have to recommend an outstanding story written by our own Anthony Castrovitz at MLB.com about Scott Rowland's connection to Tyler Frenzel. As someone who has inspired Scott Rowland so much, that is the inspiration behind Tyler's Treehouse at a beautiful camp that Scott Rowland has built in Indiana through his E5 Foundation. And last week, Scott Rowland spoke about the impact Tyler Frenzel has made on his life.
Tyler's Treehouse and Tyler Frenzel, he was a very special boy. And I met him when he was 9, and we brought he and his family to some batting practices. That's where the Tyler's Treehouse came from. And his mother went behind my back and wrote apparently I have not seen it, I think it will be published, a nice piece about our relationship and our family, and how Tyler and I became friends, and outside of just, hey, come on to batting practice, but actually had a relationship with our families and became friends, and that was I was in a very impressionable time. I was in my mid-20s, late 20s or whatever, and he really opened my awareness to a lot of things outside of just the baseball game, and maybe not just, stroking a check and sending it here or there, or just showing up randomly or whatever, but like maybe having an opportunity to take some of the platform and things that I have and really dig a little deeper with individual families that are in some distressed situations. And he opened my eyes to that, and the Frenzels did. So that's a huge important thing for me and my family, and to be able not just to spread it thin, but maybe dig a little deeper and touch somebody.
Robert, Tyler Frenzel sadly lost his battle with leukemia in 2004, but his impact continues on to this day. And a big part of Anthony Castrovitz's story is about how Tyler inspired Scott Rowland and inspired so many to give of their own treasure to create this amazing camp through the E5 Foundation for distressed families. And it was Tyler Frenzel who gave $1,000 of his own money that had been raised in support of his care to then donate that to create Tyler's Treehouse, and many other donors joined in, and now to this day Tyler's legacy is very, very strong 2 decades later. And a big part of Anthony's story as well is how Pam Frenzel, his mother, said yes, the Frenzel family will be here in Cooperstown to celebrate and honor Scott Rowland this weekend. And Jayson Stark, you yourself a Hall of Famer, as we talk about this great building and the great hall, which is just behind us here in Cooperstown. You've done a lot of great work, Jayson, on thinking about the current players who will one day join Scott Rowland in the Hall of Fame. So Jayson, you've done a lot of work on this through The Athletic. So which current Major League players will one day join Scott Rowland and Fred McGriff here in the Hall of Fame?
JP, I've got a list. Of course I do. I think there are 8 players, active players, who I think we can say are already in. They're not a surprise. Mike Trout is on the list. Obviously, Kershaw, Scherzer, Verlander, all on the list. Miggy, yes, not a big shock, right? Zach Greinke, Joey Votto are the ones that people seem to wonder, how can they already be in? Hey, take a look. Everybody who's had their careers is in the Hall of Fame, except people associated with the PED era. And then I actually added a name since I wrote the column and since I talked about this on this show. Freddie Freeman, I now think, is in. What do you think?
Breaking news, Freddie Freeman, by the way. We can make those plans for years from now for Freddie to be in Cooperstown. Deservedly so. 2,000 hits, perennial all-star. And Jayson, it's so unique as well. There are a couple other players that you've talked about who have perhaps, like Freddie Freeman, improved their standing this year since you wrote that column in May. Now, maybe not quite locks in the way that Freddie Freeman is already, but how about Craig Kimbrell and Salvador Perez?
Right. Now, after I wrote what I wrote, actually after I appeared on this show and talked about this very topic, I heard from a lot of my friends in Kansas City saying, how can you not have Salvy Perez at least on a path to the Hall of Fame? And he was really close. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought I really should include Salvy as a guy with a case. Look, he has his pros and cons, but we're talking about a player with 8 All-Star teams, 5 Gold Gloves, 4 Silver Sluggers, won a home run title, won an RBI title, made a ton of All-Star teams, won a World Series, and is within reach, John, of 300 home runs. And there are only 7 catchers who ever lived with 300 home runs. 6 of them are in the Hall of Fame. I do think there is a path for Salvy to get there, even though if you look at stuff like OPS plus, wins above replacement, he's probably a little bit below the standard. Craig Kimbrell, I had a couple of years ago as being almost a sure thing, and I took him, put him on a different list. I think he's back as a guy who is in the red zone. Based on this year, I was doing a little work on who might get in next year. Started looking at Craig Kimbrell versus Billy Wagner. It's incredible how similar those two guys are in terms of their credentials. WHIP, ERA, the domination, the strikeout numbers. Craig Kimbrell has made about 100 fewer trips to the mound than Billy Wagner, but he's certainly a guy who, if he keeps doing what he has done this year, when he has completely revived his career, that's a guy who I think is back in the red zone.
Closing out the All-Star game tends to put you on the radar for august honors such as this. And Jayson, along those lines, how do you compare Kimbrell with Kenley Jansen? Both hit a round number in saves this year. Do you see a real distinction between the two?
Yeah, when I did my original list, I had both Kimbrell and Kenley as being formerly in the red zone, and I think they've both gotten themselves back in a Hall of Fame path. Kenley, I think, has still got some work to do. The domination of Craig Kimbrell from beginning to end, I think, is slightly superior to Kenley's, but Kenley's had an amazing career, obviously.
He has indeed. And one thing to watch, Robert, as we send it back to you, third baseman, a theme, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, during the course of our MLB Now coverage as well. Traditionally underrepresented, but rolling in this year, Adrian Beltre perhaps next year, and a couple guys by the name of Arenado. He may end up being in there as well as the future goes on as well, Robert, as we send it back to you in Secaucus, New Jersey.
Well, guys, have a great time in Cooperstown this weekend. We look forward to your coverage all weekend right here on MLB Network.